welcome to The Good Pod, where today we're talking The Good Wife, Season 2, Episode 3, Breaking Fast. I am one of your hosts, Jason Reed, with me, a platinum member of DateHearts.com, Marissa Garza. Marissa, you good?
Yeah. I am so good that I have retired my membership to datehearts.com because of the danger that I saw in this episode. I mean, I don't want to be mixing up with that type of stuff. So, it's hard. It's hard out there. It's hard enough, Jason. It's hard enough to get a date, let alone having to worry about snipers,
I feel like
and serial killers, and also astrology. So it's a tough bag. It's hard out there.
I feel like this should have been a 2-part episode where they're like, first episode, we're going to catch the sniper. Second episode, we're going to represent DateHearts.com in their libel lawsuit, saying they are not responsible for this guy killing his prospective dates. That should have been like the second part of this thing. But yeah, before we dive too deep into the nitty gritty of this case, we want to remind you of some free and easy ways that you can support this podcast. No matter where you're watching, listening, or whatevering, you can rate, review, subscribe, all those fun things that no matter where you are, there's something you can do to help us out, whether it's just rating us 5 stars, leaving us a 5-star review, or if you're on YouTube, hitting that thumbs up button down there to really help us get into the eyes and ears of more people. We would really, 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 really appreciate it. If you want to just like confab with us, talk to us, give us your thoughts and opinions on either past episodes, upcoming episodes, or storylines, you can do that. You can talk to us on the goodpodfeedback@gmail.com. If you just want to do that, that would be great. We would really, 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 really love to hear from you.
Yes. Yeah. Any way you would like to communicate it with us. I have a book on how to read flag symbols, but I'm not too well versed in smoke signals. But any other way of communicating with us,
if someone wanted to shoot a video of them doing a flag communication,
semaphore, yeah,
and they want to send it your way, that would be a thing. You can translate it for me and say, "This is what this person's saying." It just really, really, really tracks that you have a book of how to read flag symbols.
Girl Scouts. It's called Girl Scouts. Okay.
I feel like you have a numerous amount of books that are similar to flag reading or whatever it's called.
Well, some people don't trust the internet, so like there's ways to communicate.
Yeah, what happens when the world ends and we only communicate via flag? Who's gonna be the only ones that communicate? It's you, Marissa. We're all gonna be looking to you for answers about how we can communicate with the other civilizations out there through flag.
All right, yeah. Well, these flags were not used.
Who's the nerd now? Who's nerd now?
It's always me. It's still me.
You guys want to come at me about my flag reading, but who is the only person you can turn to figure out what's going on in the world? Me.
Yeah.
The Flag Reading Network, FRN. How are you going to get your news?
Hey, Jason, let's bank that. Like, let's save that in case we need that for later.
Yeah, patent pending. FRN is our thing. Patent pending.
Well, besides podcasting, we are also about this show. We are also podcasting about Elsbeth. You'll find those episodes dropping on Saturday. So we haven't gone into the flag casting business yet, but we are mighty busy here on the Good Pod. So please let us know what your thoughts are along the way. Jason, snarky little episode we have going on with the political side of things, but a pretty standard good wife case of the week. What were your thoughts overall?
Yeah, it was fine. It feels like a lot. The cases of the week are either big deals or they're just like kind of running in the background. I feel like this is kind of running in the background of everything else that was going on with Alicia, particularly with Alicia's family, where we get to meet a part of Alicia's family that we haven't met or really had even heard of before. As I think about it, I think about the fact that in season 1 we didn't really dive deep into Alicia's, background at all about any of her family or any of that going on. If you would have asked me in season 1, I would just say Alicia has no family besides Peter. There's no siblings. Time out.
I lost you.
Lost me.
Now you're back. I don't know what happened, but I lost you mid. Alicia has no family.
What the freak is happening? You can hear me now, though?
I can hear you now, though. I don't know if you leaned on something or
Hmm.
something happened, but I heard Alicia has no family. And
Okay.
then I didn't hear anything else.
All right, let me back up. Sorry for making you edit so much. Hold on.
Oh, it's fine.
Um, if you had asked me in season one, Alicia had no family. Like she just came from nowhere. She has no parents. She
Yeah.
has no siblings. She just kind of appeared one day. And now in episode 3 of season 2, we're finally getting a little more color, a little more context, a little more texture into Alicia's life outside of Peter and the kids, which I thought was very interesting. And I didn't even know how much I needed it until I got it, because
Yeah.
when I got it, I was like, oh, okay, like this may explain a little bit more about Alicia and who she is, and give us more insight into the person of Alicia. That is, we're not just thinking about this one instance that she has with Peter and her kids. So I thought it was a very interesting look into the character.
Yeah, it adds, as you were saying, a little bit more color to the conversation around who Alicia is and where she comes from. And I had forgotten about Owen, her brother,
Yeah,
who we do meet, but he is something that, or someone that comes back
he'll pop
throughout
up.
the series. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that he is here now.
And that's the experience of rewatching The Good Wife, where it's like something will unlock a memory. You're like, oh yes, like I totally forgot that this is a
Yeah.
thing, but now that he's back, I totally remember this. Like it's so funny how this show just unlocks you in certain ways when you haven't watched the show in quite a while. It just gives you back like some long lost memories you had of watching the show the first time.
It's like the memories are filed way, way, way back there. And then something on the screen will just like pull them forward.
Yes, for sure.
All right, well, let's talk about this case of the week, the case of the Northbrook sniper, which is apparently a case that Alicia's been working really hard on off camera and has never talked about before until today. But we are introduced to this case kind of through like what we were led to believe is like a very harsh deposition for like against their client, but ends up being like deposition practice. The son of the man who is accused of being the Northbrook sniper wants basically to get his dad's name cleared. His dad died shortly after the trial. The trial like basically gave him a heart attack is what his son is saying, and so his son is saying they didn't prove anything. I want his name cleared. I want my dad's name to be good. He is no longer here. And this was an interesting showing of Derek actually
Mhm.
questioning someone, and just everyone kind of supporting him in this practice. We did learn that his mom had a restraining order against his dad, so there is some question as to like how good of a guy his dad is, I guess. But overall, their mission here is to prove that there was a rush to judgment by the court and that Wyatt's dad is innocent. What did you think of this opening, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because the way we came into the case was with Derek being, aggressive and questioning this guy. We start this by thinking that this young man is some opposition, but no, this is just showing Wyatt what the actual court case, what the actual deposition from the other side will be like, and we're trying to prepare him for the harshness of the other side and how they're going to come at you and all these things. So I thought it was interesting to have that show from Derek of what he could be in a courtroom, because we have yet to really see him try a case. So this is kind of our first foray into who Derek Bond could be inside a courtroom,
Yep.
how gnarly he can get, because from what we've seen so far, he's been this kind of gentle, low talking guy. So it's interesting to see this side of him come out. Why it tells us like, yeah, my dad died 30 years too early. I'm like, so you're like, why is 30 years your thing? He's only going
He's
to live till 80?
Nostradamus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to kill him at 80? Is that why he's only living another 30 years? Was interesting. But we also get the thing of Alicia. They want Alicia to go talk to Wyatt, to go talk him into, I forgot what they're trying to talk him into. Like, tell him that this could be something that'll be happening. Like, and Bond throws out something like, "Oh yeah, Alicia, your specialty is lowering the client's expectations." Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. That was interesting because I think, like, if I think through her character, is that because she settled, like, for herself and now, like, she's working through raising her own expectations? And that's why he said it?
I guess
Like, for
that's
the
like,
audience's benefit, not necessarily for the story?
Well, it's this thing that we've heard from people about Alicia. Like Alicia is the hand holder of the
She
firm. Like
is.
she has the tact and she has the relatability to people to be able to like kind of. I guess what they're trying to do is like I know Wyatt's think he's going to get like a millions of dollars, but maybe he will only get like not much. So Alicia, you go in there and you kind of talk him into being okay with only taking like 300,000 if they come in, because I think they know their case is hard to prove. So like if we can get them
Yes.
to give us like $100,000, maybe have him take that instead of going forward with the case, and they send Alicia in to kind of talk him into this to kind of like make him okay with this. I think that's what he's saying. But it's just kind of a weird thing to say to someone like your specialty is lowering expectations. Like say what?
Well, and her reaction is like, "That's exciting work."
And it's
Like,
like yeah,
okay.
we've heard Alicia,
What do you
you know,
say to your boss about that?
yeah, we've heard Alicia kind of bristle at the fact that all she's like, what the intimation is like all you're good for is, you know, hand holding clients and, you know, speaking to them and whatnot. I think she's kind of, at least with our main people, Diane and Will, I think she's proven that she's more than that, but maybe she still has to prove it to Bond, because for Bond to
Yeah.
say this is like, okay, that's kind of rude, but whatever.
Well, and he's apparently her mentor or whatever.
Yeah, which
So
hasn't
I
really
don't.
come into play
Yeah,
too much. So yeah, well, you know.
I don't know. The Kings like mentors. We just were talking about mentors on Elspeth.
Mm.
Anywho, yes. So Diane and Derek basically have to go to visit State's Attorney Childs and say, "Hey, this is what we're doing. Let's try to strike a deal." And let's just set the scene for a minute because I thought it was quite hilarious. Childs is sitting at his desk. Okay. He's sitting there looking at them, having a conversation. On one side of him, we have Wendy Scott Carr, DA Wendy Scott Carr, who's also known as Princess Tiana. She's a Disney princess,
Yeah, by Anika
played
Nani
by,
Rose.
yes, yes.
Who, as you mentioned, is the voice for Tiana, which I don't, again, like I keep saying it, but it's unlocking memories. Like Wendy Scott Carr, I remember that name now. I remember this person. She shows up again and again. Like, and then I looked her up. I was like, oh yes, because she obviously looks familiar because she's been in a million things. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that she was the voice of Tiana until like now. So that was very interesting. But I also have to rewind a little bit to show it to remember to remind you of how we got into Child's office.
Mm.
Carrie comes off like I think it was the elevator. He's like,
Oh,
it's just like
yes,
strutting. He's just like,
yes.
I'm big man on campus. Although Carrie, as far as we've seen, your time in the state's attorney's office has not been very successful. So I don't know what you're strutting about because we keep beating your ass every time we're against
Any
you.
But I think he is like, I think this is what I would like to think Carrie, like Carrie just came out of the bathroom. He just looked at himself in the mirror and he was giving himself a pep talk. He's
This
like,
is you.
listen,
This is
I have
yours.
to go see Diane. Like, I have to be the man. I have to walk with the swagger. So, yeah, he walks in with like all of this attitude and it ends up being on the other side of Child. Like, he is
Yeah.
flanked by these two DAs
He just has to stand there like an
standing.
enforcer. Like
Yes.
he's not a big man in this. He just has to be window dressing in this case.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was so fun. Like just
Yeah.
walking in like he's big and bad. Like, bro, we've taken you down twice now. So I know what you're so big and bad about. But yeah, you're
And
right. He probably had to psych himself up to be like, you're the guy. You're the one. He's as he puts more like gel in his hair to make his hair look professionally messy. I don't know if that's what you would call this hairstyle, professionally messy or what. But he's like, you're gonna go in there and you're gonna show him what's for. And he struts in and he just basically just stands with his hands with his arms folded, like
well,
staring daggers into Diane.
Diane's like, okay,
Yeah.
hi, okay, cool.
So cute.
And then they have this whole conversation, and Derek does the whole "let me write a number on a piece of paper and slide it over to you." It was very theatrical, and Childs is like, yeah, "Listen, I'm not going to make a deal with you as long as Alicia is on the case because obviously this is benefiting her husband. This is about the campaign. I can't have any of that." And Derek and Diane are both like, "Oh, okay, I guess we're." Gonna have to take her off the case. We're gonna have to talk about this.
But Childs, it's not always about you, bro.
I
Like
know,
it's
I
like
know.
I know what you're doing. You're putting Alicia Fork. Every case Alicia Fork is on is to undermine me. It's like, no,
She has to do a
she
job.
just works as a lawyer, man. Like
Yeah.
that's just what's gonna happen. He's like, no, you're doing it to get to me. Like, no, man. Like it's not always gonna be about you, Childs. Sorry, it's just Things happen outside of you. It's just be okay with that. So it's like, what are they going to do? Like now they can't put her on any cases against the state's attorney, like because it's got to be a case against like regular people. Like they can't put her in any of the state's attorney's cases. That's what's going to happen here.
No, I think like how this case ends, they kind of tell him like we're not backing away from you. Like we're not
Yeah.
like she's got a place here. But at the moment, there's a off-camera conversation with the partners, and Will volunteers to be the person to tell Alicia, "Hey, I need you to take a step back," which is just showing that he still loves her, and
Yeah.
is basically telling her, if it's a win, it's your win. Like we have to do this for the optics of it all. And she's like, "Yeah, okay, I get it." Fine. But it was definitely a moment for Will to come in.
There's still that spark there. It's
Mm-hmm.
like yeah. She's like, did they make you come and tell me? He's like, no, I volunteered to come talk to you because I wanted to talk to you. And they figured
Talk to you.
it'd be better coming from me because I'm in love with you. I mean, because we got such a good relationship.
Rapport.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's it. That's it.
Real professional. Nothing else going on. We're just
Yeah.
They know we're cool. They know we're good.
Well, now it's time for the real deposition. We saw the practice deposition that Wyatt was in, and he held his own there. But I don't think anyone was really, really taking into account what they would see from Wendy Scott Carr in this deposition. She really pulled out some deposition theatrics with the "Let me walk around. Do you need some gum?" And Derek's like, "I'll take it. Like, don't even." And he doesn't, and he throws it on the table. He doesn't even like have it.
That was so smooth. He just takes these like, I'm just gonna throw it over here. She calls her. She's like, now tell me a little about the relationship between your parents. Like, I understand sometimes there could be fights. Like, she just has this real like sweet monotone, and it's so funny because Bond and Alicia and everybody else was trying to prepare Wyatt for this really aggressive, really out of hand deposition, and Wendy Scott Carr just kind of comes in and turns everything on its head by acting totally outside of what they thought she's going to act like, and just tries to come at it with a a different, sweeter tone of like, it's okay. You can tell me what happened. You can be real with me. Let's just talk.
Well, and it's totally like she knows what she's doing. She knows what she's doing and why she's doing it. And like the whole, I'm not going to sit across the table from you. We're on the same side of the table. I'm going to sit next to you. You can trust me, all of this stuff. And you hear at the end of the scene, Derek lean over to Diane and say, she's killing us. Like she's really doing some work here. Outside, Kalinda
be Kalinda. That's what it is.
Like, okay, so she's tracking Blake, which we'll talk about in a bit, but she's tracking Blake, and then all of a sudden over the radio, the police radio, she hears there's a shooting. And what does Kalinda do? With her giant SUV, she just like pulls a Yui, goes to drive up to this active crime scene and finds that there was like another shooting. But the police officer was like, yo, Kalinda, like this is like really happening right now.
It's like, who doesn't Kalinda know anywhere ever? She just walks up to a active shooting scene with active SWAT, and the guy just turns. He's like, "Oh, hey, Kalinda, like this is actually serious." Instead of being like, "Get out of here!" Like, get out of like, hey, like he just made sure like, "Oh, Kalinda, what's going on, girl?" Like, just stay behind us because this is some real shit. I know you're Kalinda, but just be cool. He doesn't demand her to leave. He's just like, she's here. She's cool. She's Kalinda.
Well, and she was like recklessly driving to the situation. Like it was like out of control.
Like, does she do this to every crime scene? Does she just go, no matter if her law firm is involved or not? I mean, I guess she assumed that this had something to do with the sniper case, which she is, her law firm is part of. But just like to do. I think this is a little too much of the Kalinda persona for her to run into an active shooter scene to be like, I'm super Kalinda, nothing can hurt me. It was such an interesting, just crazy scene to just see her.
It was like
that into
let's
this
just get
into this
Kalinda
thing.
there. Let's get Kalinda there. Let's have her be the person that finds out that there was a man in a van with the same rifle that was used in these other killings, and bring that information back to the firm To which everyone is elated to hear. They're like, "Oh my goodness, this is great for our case. We need to double our ask. Like we now need to capitalize on this." And Childs is also trying to capitalize on this because he's out there talking to the press saying, "Hey, so this is not the Northbrook sniper. This is the copycat. And the reason why there's copycats out right now is because of the case that's being brought against before." Like he's basically blaming um the firm for bringing this back into the public eye and encouraging copycats. And so everyone's like, "Oh crap,
Yeah.
that's
And this
happening."
and this whole thing like brings upon the double R ask montage. Everyone's like, double R ask,
Yeah.
double R ask, double R ask, double R ask. And it was interesting because as Kalinda is giving this information out to a law firm, Blake is trying to like give his 2 cents. And Bond turns against Blake, kind of is like, no, we got Kalinda, she'll handle it. Why don't you go on to Murphy Gomez? Murphy
Which is
Gomez.
like
Murphy
the
Gomez is
trash
this
case.
season. It's this season Schifrin Marks because
Yes.
we keep hearing that name Murphy Gomez through every episode this season, and much like Schifrin Marks in the first season, it's just some random case that we will never ever see. That we just like everyone just keeps referring to. That it's an interesting device that I love that they're using this to kind of like this kind of placeholder for people that they want to send away. We're gonna send you over to this other thing that because in season 1 we were like, ooh, Schifrin Marks. Like,
Schifrin Marks.
when are we going to see the big Schifrin Marks case? And we never got the Schifrin Marks case. So I have a feeling that we're never going to see this Murphy Gomez case. That is probably going to be, referenced several more times this season, but we will never see a Murphy Gomez case, which I think is very fun and very interesting for the Kings to do.
Absolutely. There's that. And also, we're kind of like copying what we had with Alicia and Carrie with Kalinda and Blake. Like the whole like different partners siding with different investigators and switching that thing up. So we've got a similar format that we can kind of ground ourselves in, even though we've got other things going on this season. This news that they have arrested a guy with the same rifle it's all hands on deck at the firm now, and we're splitting into 2 groups, one of which Blake is going to be on and one of which Kalinda is going to be on. And basically Blake is going to be looking for patterns and Kalinda is going to be looking for like malice, basically like things that reasons why Carl would have done this.
Yeah.
And we see Carrie in court again, and he is arguing that Carl, the man who was arrested from the van that Kalinda saw, Carl is a threat to public terrorism. And then he also looks behind him and sees Kalinda. There's a little smile. He thinks he still has a shot in the situation.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
He's calling out collusion in this case, basically saying like, "Judge, like they're talking to the firm that's bringing the case against the Northbrook sniper." And the judge is like, "Well, I can't. What do you want me to do?"
He's like, teacher.
Yeah.
They're cheating.
Yeah. And what Kalinda is bringing to the case is the fact that Carrie has omitted a key witness, Detective Mangold.
Carrie loves omitting key witnesses. Carrie loves to hide stuff. Carrie loves to just put stuff, in another place where they don't think anyone else is gonna find it. That's Carrie's judge. That's Carrie's jam right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it turns out the reason why Mangold was left off of the witness list is because he was addicted to Vicodin. And if he was addicted to Vicodin at the time of the crime, this could go towards like this is not looking good for his case. So obviously Carrie didn't want him to be on the stand, but Kalinda was going to find out no matter what. Blake, on the other hand, is looking at the footage from one of the shootings. This is like, okay, Kalinda's gonna Kalinda, Blake's gonna Blake. He's like, there's no pattern because there was 1 man and 3 women who are shot. But hold on, let me zoom in on this very, very limousine license plate and then find the exact limo and get the camera footage from the limo.
Because we're all seeing what he's seeing and we're all just like, what are you talking about? Like, we're just like squinting at it. He's like, no, it's right there. I'm telling you. It's like, I don't see it. He's like, no, it's there. There's a hole in that trunk. It's like, okay, you say so, bro. Blake apparently has like special eagle eyes or something. I don't know.
Or it's the way that he like the computer programs he uses or something. I have no idea. But he goes like to the limo service and is like, I know that you have this footage. Can we strike some sort of deal? And it turns out that the footage shows that the man who was shot accidentally. The
Yeah.
original target was this other woman who ends up being a house mom at a Greek house. I don't know why or how we got over here, but we did. And she's like, yeah, no, I've never seen this guy before. Like, I don't know what's going on. And then Kalinda's going to Kalinda. So they're talking about this lack of pattern. And Kalinda's like, wait a minute. Everyone's birthdays, they're all Geminis.
It's like, okay.
I'm going to go ask the guy if he just kills Geminis.
I love how Derek's like, so you think we got the Zodiac killer going on?
Yeah, yeah.
And Kalinda's like, yeah, basically. And Kalinda just gets up and leaves. Everyone else in that room that's familiar with Kalinda is just like, yeah. And Derek's like, why did she just get up and leave? And there's like, oh yeah, that's Kalinda. She does that. Like she gets up and leaves. You just don't gotta question it. You just gotta know that she's doing something cool. Like that's all you gotta know, Derek. So you'll get used to it. That's just what she does.
Yeah, just let her be her.
Yeah.
She goes and she talks to Carl, and Carl looks different than the last time we saw Carl. Carl apparently was wearing a toupee the first time we saw him. Was not wearing a toupee in jail. So this ends up being like the key to the whole case.
Yeah, because Kalinda is gonna show the sorority mom the picture of Carl without hair. She's like, oh, that guy. I wanted a date with that guy. It's like, wait a minute. Is this like the Clark Kent glasses? Like, if he puts the glasses on, you don't know he's Superman. Takes the glasses off, it's like, oh my god, it's Superman. So you had you went on a date with this man, and the only thing that made you not realize who he was this toupee. Like taking toupee off, I was like, oh yeah, it's that guy. It was just such a funny thing going on.
Is she like literally photoshops the hair out of the picture? We do get a little interaction between Kalinda and Carrie at the at the prison though, before she does that. Yeah. And Carrie like pulls her out of there. And there's this whole conversation about like Carrie liking the moral clarity of the prosecutor's office and a very like, do you miss me? Like weird vibey question. And Kalinda answers in the only way Kalinda knows how, is just telling Carrie what he wants to hear.
Yeah, and it's like the moral clarity, bro. We have seen you on this side for 2 whole episodes, and in both those episodes, you are willing to do some shady shit to get your way to do things. So I don't know what moral clarity it is you're talking about. Maybe he's like, yeah, we do bad stuff over here, but we don't pretend like we're good guys. Maybe that's what he means. Maybe that's what he's getting at. But I don't know.
But they literally do pretend like they're the good guys because they're doing it for the people.
True. So I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I just think he just says things to just dig at people that he doesn't even know what he's talking about.
To himself. Or he's like trying to convince himself, like, I'm on the good side now. So anything that I do is, backed up by morals. I don't know.
But do you miss me though? Like, we've seen the like devil side of Carrie, but he just cannot help but to hit on Kalinda when he sees her. Like, I know he's supposed to be a different Carrie now, but some habits die hard. Like, he's got to flirt. You miss me though, right? She's like, what do you want to hear? Like, what would make you happy? It's like, if you missed me, she's like, yes, Carrie, then I miss you. Great. Yes, totally. Love it.
I'm going to think about that while I go to bed tonight. That's probably.
I was like, I thought you were gonna say while we're doing something else. I was like,
yeah, well, yeah. So this new information gets Derek and Will, who are talking about the strategy for the case, to basically say maybe it wasn't a great move to pull Alicia out of the case, and maybe we need to go all in on politics because politics is really what makes Childs scared. So we're going to change the case to name Childs in this, which means we have to deposition him. So Childs comes in for this deposition with Wendy, and Wendy's like, listen, we got 15 minutes. You agree? 15 minutes? Then
they're walking into this. They're walking into this thinking they got it made. Because Childs at first is like, excuse me, I have qualified immunity. And they're like, no, well, we're actually naming you, so that doesn't even really count here. So come on in. And of course, Wendy Scott Carr, who I will always say her full name, Wendy Scott Carr. It just seems like a name that you should say the full name, Wendy Scott Carr. But yeah, she's like, all right, we got 15 minutes for your little whatever this is, like, because you got nothing. Basically, is their attitude coming into this. And I just love how, because when they come in at first, it's like it's Derek and Diane's
Diane.
there, and it's like, oh my god, that's Alicia Florrick's music. Alicia just walks in like a boss, and she's like, haha, I'm here, MFR, I'm here. And Charles is just kind of shaking in his boots because he's, for whatever reason, terrified of Alicia.
Yeah, it's like Wendy Scott Carr can play, so can Alicia. Like this is what's gonna happen. So she walks in to question him, asks about the cover up of Mangold's addiction, but then also just brings in this new information from datehearts.com that all of these women were conversing with Carl on datehearts.com. He found out when their birthdays were. And
well, we did see Kalinda give Carrie like some envelopes
yes,
at the
that's
prison.
true.
So I think that's where they probably got it from.
That's true.
So yeah, like I just love the bossness that Alicia came at this with. She has no F's to give when it comes to Childs. So I'm sure she relished this. She's like, oh,
like,
you want me to go and mess with Childs? I'm 100%. Let me at him.
Every time Childs like answered a question, he's like, unlike my predecessor, I know everything that's going on in my office, blah, blah, blah. So she would say, this information was presented to your ASA. You were aware of everything, right? Unlike your predecessor, correct? That's what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Oh, Alicia got him. She got him. I love when Alicia gets him. I love these moments where Alicia's just so boss. I love it.
It was so good. It was so good. And that kind of, we run out of our 15 minutes in this deposition, but they know, like, the state knows that they are in trouble. So they ask, like, what is your offer? And Derek says, before or now, obviously now. So he names $4 million. And Wendy Scott Carr's reaction is like, what you are seeing is not a reaction. Get your client to agree to a gag order and then talk to me.
It's like, Wendy Scott Carr, what are you doing? She's just like,
what is happening?
Because Child's left because he cannot be a part of this. He cannot be a part of actually admitting that they lost.
Right.
So he leaves Wendy Scott Carr to do all of the talking. And she's like, what you see here is no reaction. Like, okay, good for you, Wendy Scott Carr. Whatever. Just give me my money. Give me my money. Like, just be quiet. Give me what I got. Okay? Because we won. You lost. Like, all right, big deal. Come on.
Well, and then of course we have to have Alicia go talk to Wyatt because she's the client whisperer, and Alicia's like, I don't know, man. Like, he just wanted his father's name cleared. I don't know if $4 million is really going to make the difference. And I love how Diane and Derek are like, okay, just go have the conversation. See how this happens. And Alicia goes, and Wyatt is more than happy to take $4 million.
Yep. And I love Diane's like, oh, predictable money. Works every time.
Yeah, because his whole thing was like wanting to talk about his dad. And so the gag order Alicia was worried about. But there's a lot that money can solve.
For sure.
So that was our case of the week. We did have some other things going on this episode. As we had talked about at the top of the pod, we are introduced to Alicia's brother, Owen, who apparently is a visiting professor. And of course, there's a tracker there because all college students have cameras and are investigating for the Child's campaign. And
it's like these newfangled cameras on phones are so tricky nowadays.
You never need to use your iPad Nano. You can just use your phone. So the students bring up a bunch of questions like, why do you live in Oregon? At this point, we don't know that this man is Alicia's brother until a student asks, like, you're Alicia's brother, right? And he's like, yeah, why aren't you ever here? And Owen just throws out, because Peter doesn't like that I'm gay. And we'll cut to Eli eating his lunch and watching this tape.
I love that Owen says, he clocks the fact that he's being recorded. He's like, this is going to end up on YouTube now, is it? It's like, just so funny how, like, it reminds me of when in the first Iron Man movie where Tony Stark is taking pictures with some soldiers in some country. He's like, this is going to end
Yes.
up on your MySpace, is it? It doesn't rise because every time you watch that movie now, it's like, oh yeah, MySpace was a thing. Yes, YouTube is still a big thing, but it's like now it'd be like, this is going to end up on TikTok, is it? This is going to
Right.
end up on Instagram, is it? It's like, this is going to go on YouTube where all the clips get put. Like, this is the only, YouTube is the only spot where clips can be found in this day and age. It's like, this is going to go on your YouTube.
YouTube.
But
Oh, those were the
Eli,
days of you guys, though. Those days were good.
yeah, those were like halcyon days. It's like, oh my god, this new thing called YouTube where you just go and
Yeah.
watch videos all the time. It's crazy. It blows my mind, man. That was the like beginning of YouTube. It was an interesting time to live through, you youngins out there that may or may
Yeah.
not be listening to this podcast about The Good Wife from 2009.
About the good wife. There could be. If you are, I'd love to talk to you. If you are one of those people, please let us know.
100%. But it's like Eli who now at least once an episode in this season anyway is giving us some slapstick comedy every time he shows up. He's like, he sees the video of Owen and like spits out his food and just this whole like thing, this whole like slapstick routine.
It
Throws
was
a
so
book
great.
at a wall or something.
Yeah,
Like,
just get like
yeah.
information or like to get someone's attention, like because he's eating, so he can't yell, so he's just gonna throw a book at the door, and then he goes and he asks Peter about the situation, and it's all like, "Oh, Eli, I couldn't care if you're gay or not." He's like, "No,
So
it's
funny.
not that."
So funny. I love that moment because it's like I think probably people that looked at Eli like might make some really off base assumptions because he's so flamboyant. He's so like, out there. So I think people would make that wrong assumption. But as we all as viewers of The Good Wife know, Eli's got a daughter out there.
Yeah,
So I thought it was a very funny thing
and a wife.
for Peter to say of like, oh Eli, I don't care if you're gay. As if he was just waiting for Eli to come out of the closet to him. He's like, finally, you said the truth. I get it. It's fine. I've known you're gay forever, Eli. He's like, no, what are you talking about? I'm gay. Shut up.
He's very like concerned because, and this is true, like the gay population in Chicago at the time was very affluent and would give a lot of money, at least in that circle of people. So he's like, listen, we need the money. Like, this is not about me. Like, this is about the money. And Peter is speaking at 100 Black Men of Chicago, which is a real organization of Black men who mentor other Black men. But of course, this is just showing like Peter is pandering. Eli is trying to continue to pander. So that is just politics at work.
I'm sure Peter would hear you say, they'd be like, oh, no, like not me pandering.
Peter
no.
the panderer? What?
I love the blacks. How dare you?
My pastor is Black.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a Black best friend. Yeah, so yes, that is the game they are playing at this point in time. We do see this little clip of Alicia watching and keeping tabs with what's going on in Colorado. Like, it's the case of the other politician, the other good wife in the situation. Unfortunately, the mistress needs an abortion or had an abortion in this case, so things are a little bit different for her than they are for Alicia, but she is referred to as joining the long list of suffering wives.
Yeah.
So that was just a little kernel to have the conversations that Owen brings to Alicia, like setting the stage for that conversation, but it's still bothering her a little bit. Eli finds his influential, I did not catch the name of this character. I just wrote him down as influential gay man.
I think that's pretty much what they want us to refer to him as. So they don't give a lot of, like The Good Wife likes to do. They don't give us a lot of time to get to know someone's character's name. So they just like to throw us. I'm sure they said it a couple times, but they've never really made a point to really give us his name. So influential gay man, he should be. But I think it's important to point out that before this, that Eli comes to visit Alicia to like,
at work,
be like, yo. Like Owen's causing some ish, and Alicia's just like, oh, Owen, that cantankerous guy. Peter doesn't hate gay people. Owen just likes to talk, and also Will comes in, and Eli's like, hey, Will, and it's a weird thing because Eli is a client of this law firm now.
Well, and he knows, like Will doesn't know that Eli knows about Will, but Eli does know about Will. So there's a lot happening in that interaction.
Yeah, and then Will's kind of like afterwards talking to Alicia, and he's like, "Yeah, this Colorado stuff, it's like getting you down, huh?" He's like, "Yeah, it's smart of you to stay out of the picture." And Alicia's like, "Yeah, thanks." I mean, we have to get our little Alicia Will moment
Well,
every
moment.
episode. It's just a funny little quirk of this episode. What they wasn't big focused on, but it was there. It was there. Will's probably
Yeah.
thinking like, could have had it all with me, but decided to stay with Peter. I'm not gonna say I told you so, but whatever.
Well, Eli's going to have this meeting or have this conversation with influential gay man, thinking that he is like going to have to sell him on the fact that Peter doesn't hate gay people. To which the guy's like, "Oh, it's not that. It's that he's, too soft on Israel because there's this picture of him holding President Jimmy Carter, who made it to 100, to
Did he? Did he?
He did.
I feel like this is like a Weekend at Bernie's situation. Like,
No, he is. He made
Jimmy,
it and he voted. He made it. He voted. That was his goal.
Are we
like,
sure?
Yes.
Check that man, because
Yes.
the pictures I saw of 100-year-old President Jimmy Carter made me have some questions. I just want to make sure we're not Weekend at Bernieing President Jimmy Carter.
It's fair. But he wrote this book called Peace Not Apartheid about the Palestinian-Israel conflict that has been going on since before October 7th. But he has a picture. Peter is carrying this book. And so this signals to this guy that like, oh, Peter supports Palestinians. And Eli is like, would I, a Jewish man, be a campaign manager for someone that supports Palestine? Now, I just want to make a little comment here saying, one, things have not changed. This conversation is still going on. Also, this is a very simplified conversation on a very complex issue. Not all Jews side with Israel. Not all Israelis are Jewish. Just putting that out there. So the fact that Eli says, like, would I, a Jewish man, represent someone who's pro-Palestinian is a very early 2000s TV comment. It's not something that would happen today.
A good time to say the views and opinions of the Good Wife and all Good Wife affiliated shows do not reflect the views and opinions of the Good Pod. Let me just put that out there right now.
Yeah, agreed. It was like really weird to look watch. I was like, oh, it's so obvious now. But when I watched it in 2012 or 2011, I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And also, you, the viewer, will not know the views and opinions of the people on the Good Pod because we're not stepping in that trap at all. So,
yeah.
Not gonna do that. We're gonna come at this in a very we're not gonna
just the facts,
just the facts, man, just the facts.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's weird and crazy of how this show in 2010 is still so extremely relevant today. Yeah. This is going to show you that just the world's gonna world. Like this is a situation, an issue that hasn't been solved in the resulting 14 years and probably won't be solved in another 14 years.
And was happening more than 14 years before the show originally aired.
Right, exactly.
It's still a thing that's going on. And it's still an issue that is brought up in politics that is something that has to do with money in the situation. Yeah. Basically, this guy is saying, because of my perceived notions on Peter's perceptions of Israel, I do not want to give this person money to run for state's attorney of Illinois
or support, basically.
But I mean, but also it's state's attorney of Illinois. At one point, influential gay man is like, you are looking at bigger and brighter offices, right? Like you are going to move up here, but this is how much a topic like Israel and Palestine can influence a very local election, because these are the things that matter to people who have money and influence in politics.
Yep, exactly.
So that's still happening. We do get to see Owen. Owen visits Alicia dressed up as basically I don't know the right word.
A gay stereotype.
Yes, I was like, I don't know the words.
Yeah.
I was like, it was very, and tries to make it fun for Alicia and Peter, or Alicia and Owen have a conversation about Peter, about their mom. We learn that Alicia's mom is getting divorced from her third husband. We get to learn a little bit more about Peter and Owen's relationship, Alicia and Owen's relationship. What did you think of this like wine and dine, not really dine, but wine and wine situation?
I enjoyed the chemistry between them. It was giving very brother and sister relationship of how they can kind of poke at each other, be 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 mean, but mean in that brother sister way. Alicia's like, he doesn't not like you because you're gay. He doesn't like you because you're a jerk. That's the difference here, and how they're able to just kind of they're able to jab at each other, but then relate on their parents are like talking about mom's getting divorced. Have you heard from her? Like, yeah, she wrote. So it goes to tell us also about Alicia's relationship with her mom. Like, they don't have a very close
Mm-hmm.
relationship. She's like, yeah, she wrote. Like, she didn't call, she wrote you, which is like we don't talk a lot. And so yeah, I think it was a very telling relationship. I loved the I guess chemistry between these two actors. Owen, who's played by Dallas Roberts, who I know from The Walking Dead, more like mostly he's one of those people that are in a lot of things. Also, he was the guy that I mentioned this before in one of I listen to audiobooks. I listen to different audiobooks. He was the villain in one of the audiobooks I listened to a long time ago.
Ooh.
But yeah, so he's known, he's out there. But yeah, I love the conversation. I love the chemistry they had. So it was a very very good convo for this year.
Yeah, and we also learned that like Alicia has a stare for
Yeah,
people that don't live up to her standards, and this is like kind of interesting information to for Alicia to like digest. And there is a very brotherly threat of like, I'm here for 3 more days. By the end of those 3 days, you are divorcing your husband. Like
yeah.
this is what's gonna happen there.
And I feel like we've seen the Alicia stare, right? We've seen it as viewers of the door. Like
Yes.
we've seen when Alicia thinks you've done wrong and that look she gives you. And I like how Owen clocks her of like, you don't want a divorce because you don't want to be like mom and dad. It's like
Yeah.
that's your motivation for not divorcing Peter. And yeah, he does say like, by the time I leave here, you're going to be, getting out of here. She says, what is it? It's like Alicia's like, I feel like, because she's telling Owen, like, you're being too judgy on Peter. And Owen's like, well, he's Two Faced. And Alicia's like, hey, I'm Two Faced. Like, I am more
We're
complex.
humans.
Like, I'm grown up now.
Yeah.
It kind of is like, yeah, Alicia, you have really changed, I guess, from what we've seen. It's like the Alicia we saw in the first episode of Good Wife is a more complex, more grown up version. She's stealing evidence from crime scenes.
Yeah.
Like she's a very complex, as she says, two faced person as well. So she's kind of being like, well, if you don't like Peter, then you don't like me either. So stick that in your
Yeah.
pipe and smoke it, Owen.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing from this conversation where Owen's like, you were this person that when mom and dad got divorced, you said, you can do this to me, but you can't do this to Owen. I was like, that really tracks who Alicia is of like,
Yeah.
this kind of martyr version of herself where she's like, you can trash me all you want, but don't do this to the other person, which is probably a little fakey fake, right? It's like not like it's like she probably also doesn't want her parents to divorce, but it's like she also wants to make
Right.
it seem like she's being self-sacrificial.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause she's done that like in the conversations about her marriage, she's always like, it's about the kids. Like,
Yeah.
don't worry about me. Don't do it, but don't do this to my kids.
Yeah.
Uh, one of the things I forgot to mention about Eli's conversation with influential gay man to get out of the entire Israel Palestine conversation. Eli, this just shows how good Eli is thinking on his feet. He's like, well, would you like to come over for dinner at Peter's house? They're having me over for Yom Kippur.
Yeah. I love that at one moment Eli could use his religion and faith to at one point say, do you think me, someone who values religion and faith, be working for someone like Peter if he had these views? But then could also use his religion and faith as a weapon to totally lie and be like, they were going to have me over for Yom Kippur, so why don't you come over with us? It's so Eli. It's so good. It's such a
And we
statement about the character.
As we, the audience, are like, okay. And then the next scene, we see Eli talking to Peter on the phone. It's basically like, hey, guess what? You're having me over for Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
And Peter's like, okay. So we have to get to this Yom Kippur dinner, which is just the most awkward dinner we have seen on the show, but I think maybe ever. Jackie is there. Jackie
Yes.
reminds me a little too much of some of the conversations I've had with my own grandparents about
Yeah.
things
So
where, like, some of the things that come out of her mouth, I'm just like, oh, taking me back. It's taking me
this
back.
this was a Yom Kippur dinner, but some of you may have clocked this as like your typical Thanksgiving dinner of like
Yeah, yeah.
politics and older generation relatives saying some out of pocket stuff that you might be thinking of. No one here got the memo of like, be on your best behavior. We're trying to impress this guy. We like Eli's head almost explodes several times during this dinner as he's trying to keep it on track.
Like, he's ignoring Jackie, who's making comments about gay marriage and also about just anything random. So we've got
Jackie's
that
like,
going on.
Jackie's like, it doesn't matter if you guys can get married. You're still gonna run around with your pants down. I was like, what? Oh my god, Jackie, no, Jackie.
It's so bad. It is so bad. And then, of course, you've got Peter going and trying to talk about like how much he supports Israel, everything. You've got Owen saying, and gay people. He loves gay people. Background.
Owen is just
And then
Owen just keeps on trying to poke the bear, just kind of subtly. He's not there to destroy Peter. He's just there to be like, just give his jabs to Peter every now and then, which is so fun to see. It's fun to see this kind of opposition to Peter.
yeah, definitely like younger brother vibes. Like, he's
Mhm.
definitely just making himself known in that way. Grace is like Grace. I was like Grace at every family dinner. I would bring up like the uncomfortable news situation. She's like, "Well, what about blah 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 blah?" And they're like, "What is with the youth these days?" And so it's very typical in that way. But we have an interesting conversation in the kitchen where Owen is getting some wine, Alicia is getting things ready, and basically Owen decides this is a great time to talk about how you're going to divorce your husband or whatever, and says, you're living an idea, Alicia. Do you love him? Don't stay with him if you don't love him. And she's like, listen, bro, like, not now, number one. Number two, no, like, not, we're not having this conversation.
I loved it because he's like, do you love him? She's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, Alicia, Owen doesn't believe you, and I don't believe you either. Like, this is like, that was a very hesitant, yeah. And then she goes, yeah, she does like, hey, like, back up. She's like, stop reviewing my life. And I was just like, I mean, I'm kind of reviewing your life. That's like one of my things. I have a whole podcast about reviewing your life, Alicia. Sorry to tell you. Sorry to let you know. Yeah, but she's trying like Alicia's like, listen, I'm a big girl. I can handle myself. Like, you don't have to come in here and save me. Like, I'm my
Yeah.
own person. I will live my own life.
Yeah. And then she returns to the dinner, and then Peter and Owen have a conversation. And this is like, was I on Peter's side in this
Oh my
conversation?
god, no, say it ain't
What is
so.
happening?
Marissa agreeing with Peter. Oh
Oh,
my
I was
god.
like, what? Well, Peter comes in and is like, yo, where were you? Like, you want to come in now? You want to have this conversation now? I was in jail for all this time. Where were you for? Well, he didn't exist as a character. He was.
Yeah, we didn't think of him until season 2. So in our defense, in Owen's defense, he just came to life in the planning of season 2. So you can't really give him that much guff. He wasn't a person. He wasn't a character.
But he has a point. Like, if you're gonna be family when all of the times. And he even says, like, Owen, if you don't have the money to come here, because Owen lives in Washington, like, if you don't have I will give you the money. Like, my wife deserves better from your husband, which is not a great, like, it's a very slimy Peter move.
Yeah,
But the sentiment behind it,
coming from Peter,
I
it's like he says,
appreciated.
and, Owen's like, if you hurt her again, I'll kill you. Peter's like, go to hell. Like, Peter, you have no room. You have no room to stand on. Yes, it was a good Peter moment where he's like, hey, like, you only visited to say the sentence, you only visited once while I was in jail,
Yeah.
doesn't really give you the like the space to really say a lot here. But I did
Yeah, I
appreciate the
know.
sentiment that Peter was giving
I
of like,
appreciate that. Right. He's he's still very much Peter. Like he's still, but at least I was like, oh, okay. You're doing
He's
like
trying. He's trying.
The par for Peter is so like is under the ground for
Yeah.
me. So it's
He's
like,
trying.
all
He's
right.
trying. He's trying to be like the like if you're going to be your brother, be your brother. Like don't abandon her again. Which is calling out of Owen, who I guess who Owen was probably coming in here thinking he was going to be calling out Peter, but then for Peter to turn the tables and call out Owen here was a very
Yeah.
interesting turn in the story.
Owen kind of like takes that to heart. I don't know if it's what Peter said or the fact that Peter like called him out on something that was more ashamed, like got him more ashamed to
Yeah,
take action than
when Peter is calling me out for
yeah,
something, you know what you done messed up.
yeah. And at the end of the dinner, we get this. If we could not be more clear that this was a pandering political dinner, Alicia's like, I'd like to offer a toast. I've been told that Yom Kippur is not, you shouldn't say happy Yom Kippur because Yom Kippur is the holiday of atonement. So everybody atone. Like,
It's like everybody shut up and like be cool. Like that's why you see Alicia's coming in to save
like,
the day. She's like, all right, everybody. I know everybody wasn't saying some crazy stuff around the table, but everybody just shut up and enjoy the meal. We're all gonna be friends again. Let's let everything
yeah,
go.
think about what you did wrong on your own and
Yeah.
shush. Like,
Don't throw
this is
glasses
it.
at house. Don't throw glasses at stone houses. I was gonna say, don't throw stones at glass houses. Is basically Alicia's thing. Like everybody, shut the hell up. We're all gonna get along. Let it go. And
Also, like, I want this dinner to end as soon as
for real,
possible.
yeah, because
Like,
you have no idea what I just had to deal with in there. It's like, and it's so like, I mean, great. We get Grace admitting that the book was hers. And
yes.
I love Peter. Peter's thing was like, I was cleaning out the maid's quarters and I was taking that book to Goodwill. I was like, okay, bro. Again with the maid's quarters, but whatever. But yeah, Grace fesses up that the book was hers. Blah blah blah. So it was, yeah, Alicia just had to come in and say, you can see Eli being so relieved that Alicia just
Yeah.
came in and saying, he's like, oh, thank God. Because his head was going to explode from getting it at on both ends from both Jackie and Grace here, while Peter is trying to be the politician here, and Grace and Jackie are just throwing random bombs in there in the middle of it. So fun.
Well, it's like they want to be involved and included in the conversation about what they know, and what they know is not what the conversation is about.
It's like we didn't have a pep talk before this whole meeting went down. Everybody shut the hell up. Don't speak unless you're
Yeah.
spoken to. This is an
You
opportunity for
know,
Peter to smooth this over.
like if this was happening with any of the families involved in the current election, like there would be talking points. There would have
Mhm.
been like a
There'd be
briefing,
talking
a
points,
practice run.
which one of the candidates would totally ignore. We're not going to say which one,
Yes.
but if you know, you
But
know.
another family would be very prepared and happy to talk about it while also making fun dad jokes. Like it would totally work
Yeah,
out. But that was not the case for Peter and his family. But it was a funny, like you were saying, Jason, Eli is bringing in some comedy with what he's dealing with in the campaign, and it was kind of fun to see how they had to like deal with the
yeah,
situation. And we thought that this was going to be the end of Owen, but Owen decides to miss his plane, stick around for a little bit longer, and basically tell his sister, like, I'm sorry for not being here. I will be here. I will phone. You don't need to pretend to be strong. I am here for you. And he also mentions, oh, so you're Hillary, you're writing Peter's speeches, you're working your agenda through him. And I was like, that was, I don't know if that's what's happening.
yeah. It was also like, does Alicia have an agenda? Like, because I've never
No,
heard Alicia talk anything about gay rights or anything, which is weird considering she has a gay brother that we haven't heard of until this very moment.
correct.
So I don't know if this is his way, if this is the show's way of telling us that. I know we haven't shown it, but she has been working for gay rights agendas because I don't know. It was a weird thing because we
It
haven't
was
seen
weird.
Alicia give any actual. We never heard of any Alicia's actual stances on much of anything, like
Other than
her own
her
life.
life. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is, I don't know where Alicia stands on anything. So to hear that she is a staunch advocate for gay rights, I guess makes sense since she has a gay brother. But it was a weird statement to make.
I think Alicia just knows how to talk to people. Like, because
Yeah.
there was a scene before where Peter was going to go give his speech to the police, and she's like,
Yes.
you don't need that story. Like,
Right.
she just knows how to have an argument, how to have a conversation, and
She
how
has a
to
second.
present information to a group of people.
She apparently has a second career as a speechwriter. Who would have known?
Yeah. Yeah. Watch out, West Wing. Okay, so that's what was going on with the campaign and the family. The only other thing I wanted to touch on in this episode was what was going on between Blake and Kalinda. We got, first of all, Blake was trying to put Alicia in the middle of it, and Alicia's like, I'm out. Like, don't do this. I'm not
Like,
playing this game. I
I
don't have
am too
time.
busy. I got too much going on. It's like, oh, like the look on Blake's face is like, oh, okay. I was trying to bring you in on this, but I guess not. She's like, no, don't play with me. I'm not the one or the two. Like, don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. And then we see, like, okay, Kalinda was told by Diane to find some connection between Blake and Will. We do see pictures of them playing basketball, which doesn't seem like too dangerous. But then, like, we see those pictures, and then the next thing we see is like Blake going to go talk to a sex worker. And that is very confusing. And Kalinda thinks she has like this thing on Blake, and Blake is like, it's not what you think it is. And Kalinda is very, like, I don't know. I did not like the vibe coming from her in these interactions with Blake.
So it was interesting because yes, there's that picture of Will and Blake playing basketball, but Will play basketball with literally anyone.
Anybody.
I wouldn't be surprised if Blake just walked up to Will and was doing some like Oppo research on behalf of Derek, like because maybe this deal is going on. Derek's like, hey, I need you to go dig up some information on Will. And Blake just decides to show up at Will's basketball game. Will's like, sure, bro, come on, let's play basketball. It doesn't necessarily mean they had some sort of previous relationship or whatever. So that's one thing. The other thing is the whole sex worker thing of like, it's just a weird scene. Like
Weird
and it's one of those scenes that
and
shows like,
dated.
yeah, very dated. That shows like this will hit you with, where we've got multiple sex workers hanging out and they're sex workers because they're dressed provocatively. That's what the
Yeah, that's
intimation
it.
is. It's
And
like
they're on a corner.
in broad daylight, by the way. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's weird enough. It's like, and also the way they set the scene with Blake talking to a guy, talking to the sex worker. So are we supposed to believe that Blake is, I don't know what they call them now, but we used to refer to them as pimps back in the day, back
Yeah.
in the day. Is that what we're insinuating? It was a very odd scene that, yeah, we get the meeting of Kunda gives some offhanded comment later in the episode of like, I hope you wear condoms. Which
Yeah.
is
It
like,
was like,
okay. And then Blake says to her, like, oh, you seem to think you know something, but you don't really know what you think you know. So it's like, okay, what's going on? Like, I'm curious to see, because I thought we were going to wrap that up in the wrap that up. Basically, use the pun. I thought we were going to solve this by the end of this episode, but I guess this is something that we're going to find out about later down the line.
yes. I just was thinking, were Alicia and Kalinda in any scenes together in this episode?
Good question. Very good question. I don't think so.
I just wanna make a note. I just
Yeah,
wanna make a note.
yeah. Which
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I just was thinking about it. We've seen so many more conversations between Alicia and Blake, and
yeah,
also Kalinda going on these like
yeah.
excursions and doing all that stuff. So I don't
File
know if this
listen,
is when.
file that under if you know, you
Yeah, if you know,
know.
you know. Yeah, like I'm just
Actually,
making a note.
I had a conversation with someone in the DMs, in the old Twitter DMs, and they're probably listening to this right now. I just
You know.
that was asking about our Rob and Akiva Need a podcast episode
Mhm.
and who the feud was about, because this person has not seen all of The Good Wife. And let me just I just want to tip my head to you, say pay attention.
Yes. I don't know if it's an appropriate sound to make for a hat for the people who are not
Go
watching,
ahead,
but
nod.
it's
Yeah.
like,
I'm nodding my head at you. Pay attention. I think
yeah,
we were talking about. Pay
I
attention.
just I just think I wanted to mention that for reasons that will become clear. Jason, that was season 2, episode 3 of The Good Wife. Anything we did not cover? Anything else you wanted to mention?
No, I think we got it all. I think we covered everything from cover to cover. Marissa, for those out
Yeah,
there that want to pay attention to what you're doing, interested in your work, interested in what you got to say about stuff, where can they
and things.
find stuff and things? Where can they
What?
find out about this stuff and things that you talking about?
You can find me on Instagram and threads at It's Me Marissa G. I'm usually talking about some kind of stuff or something in any of those places. Yeah, or I'm talking about The Good Wife and Elspeth here with you, Jason. I don't know, because we're recording this ahead. Who knows?
You don't
You
know
know
what you're
what?
doing.
Like, I don't know what I'm doing. You don't, like, you, why don't you listeners tell me what I want to do?
Listen,
I'm going
whatever
to
it
go check
is,
that out. That would be great.
whatever it is you're doing, I'm sure it's very cool, very nerdy. Let
Yes.
me just let me just say, I wish I had a name where I could be like, "It's me, Marissa G." That just is right off the tongue. I don't. I've been trying to come up with like a better branding situation because listen,
Mm-hmm.
all my branding is very boring and very generic. Like if you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at JAYR1085, which is not catchy at all. So I'm trying to find something that that can be catchy, like it's me, Marissa G, like rhymes and stuff. So that's great. But yeah, that's where you can find me on Twitter. As far as podcasting goes, as Marissa stated, we record ahead of time. So like right now, you can definitely find me talking about the show Married at First Sight over on my podcast, The Perfect Match, with me and Asia Welch. As long as something catastrophic didn't happen from the time of recording this to the time of hearing this, I'm still doing that podcast. But I'm always podcasting about other shows out there in the universe. A lot of 90 Day Fiance shows I'll be on. Uh, if there's another season of Love is Blind or The Ultimatum or something by the time you're hearing this, I'll be talking
Oh,
about
there
it.
probably will be.
So I'll
Yeah.
be talking about it on Twitter. That's where you can find all my stuff. But yeah, that's us this week. That's our Good Wife episode. Season 2 is still in its infancy, but we're getting there. We're meeting a lot of people. We're having fun. We're having a good time. I hope you'll join us next week. And until then, stay good.